Hey guys, Dark Knight here, bringing you once again another review where today we're going to be discussing the movie Tenet, written and directed by Christopher Nolan. I saw this movie a couple days ago. I got an early screening, so I'll be breaking down how I felt about the movie, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world. A protagonist's journey through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. Yes, this is a Christopher Nolan's film. If you've seen any of the films, you know how he is as a director and a filmmaker. You can tell when a movie is a Christopher Nolan movie, and Tenet is exactly that. So I've had a couple days to kind of process the film. I haven't seen it twice. I probably should have seen it a second time before I did this review, which I'll get into that when I get to the cons of the film. Yes, there are cons. Not every film is perfect. There will be no spoilers in this video, as you can see by the title. So I'm gonna make this pretty brief and just go over how I felt about the film. It is a pretty divisive film. People are loving it, people are mixed about it, people are hating it. Everyone's falling on all ends of the spectrum, and I don't blame them for not liking the film. But I'll get into that when we get to the cons. So let's talk about the pros. The four big actors in the film are going to be John David Washington playing the character called the protagonist. He doesn't actually have a real name. His name is just the protagonist. Then we got Robert Pattinson. He's playing a character called Neil. So those two are basically the main characters, with John being the main character and Pattinson being kind of his sidekick, as you will. The villain of the film is very Bond-esque, James Bond-esque. This whole movie is just a spy. It's Nolan's take on doing James Bond, which is pretty cool to see. The heart of the film is played by Elizabeth Debicki. I've only seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with her work, so I'm not really familiar with her, but she was a standout in the film, as well as the other two. I have a problem with the main character, but we'll get into that when we get to the cons. A lot of the pros in this movie are just the concept itself of how the movie works. I won't get into too deep into how the time thing works. See it for yourself. It was very cool to see how he took all these ideas and turned it into some very interesting action set pieces and fun little concepts inside the film that just added that extra layer of originality to the film. Yeah, the visuals were pretty cool. Nolan has said the film has barely any CGI, which is definitely something Nolan likes to do. He gets to keep his movies super grounded and in realism. It just feels real. There's no like weird looking CGI places that just take you out of the film. It's all technically real, which is super cool to think about and just to watch it and just to feel like you're in the movie. But they shot each scene twice for those big scenes, and they just mashed them together, and they also worked on the choreography in reverse. It's just a cool film. Like, it's just an awesome concept, and we don't see films like this anymore. We're always getting sequels and reboots to things. So, like I said, this is a very divisive film. People are leaning more towards the flaws, and there's other people that are leaning more towards, oh, this is just cool with Christopher Nolan work. But I do have a couple problems with the film, and it took me out just a tiny bit. The cons are the movie is just confusing, and it's confusing in the wrong way. The whole time concept is they've tried to dumb it down as much as possible, and that is easy to understand. But the difficult part is the actual story itself. They drop you into this world. The exposition is very confusing. You don't really get into it until like 45 minutes into the film, where you're finally starting to kind of understand what's going on. But even towards the end of the film, you're like, what is happening with the main plot? The time thing is not as confusing as the normal plot itself, which makes the time part even more confusing because you don't have a grasp and a baseline of how the film actually works, or how the characters are connected and all this stuff. And it definitely is a film that's going to be need to be rewatched multiple times to understand what is actually going on, or just watch a couple of video breakdowns on how the film actually plays out, or just read a synopsis. They definitely, for the trailers, teased more of the time element. We thought it was going to be 2.5 hours of just this crazy back and forth, reverse, all this stuff, but that's not in a lot of the film. A lot of the film is all this other spy going across the countries, and that part's the confusing part. It's just really hard to, comprehend what is actually happening in the plot. There was a line earlier when they were discussing how the time inverse thing works, and the person that was throwing all that exposition was like, you don't need to understand, you just gotta feel it. But that was for the time thing. That wasn't a play on words for the actual plot. You're leaving with the wrong questions rather than leaving like, oh, how'd they do that? How does this work? How to go back and watch the movie and like look at each of the scenes and see like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I know that person. And it's just confusing to be able to appreciate what's happening with that stuff when the plot itself isn't as easy to understand. Another little tidbit, the sound mixing was kind of off in a couple scenes. Christopher Nolan has had a problem with that in the last couple years with his films. I haven't seen Dunkirk, but I think Dark Knight Rises was one of those films where just Bane's voice is super high or above the mix, and it just didn't work well. There was a couple scenes in here where the music and the sound effects were definitely overpowering the exposition, which was a bad idea because the exposition was important. That's why it was really hard to understand what was actually happening in the film. This film was really cool just to experience for 2.5 hours. The action scenes were pretty cool. The concept of the inverse and Tenet itself is a pretty neat and original idea that I love seeing in 2020 Hollywood after all these Disney reboots and sequels and all this other stuff. And it's nice and refreshing to see something new, and Nolan has usually been the one to bring that to cinema. It is an A- for me on just the score for itself, but the entertainment scale will be a 7.5 out of 10. But I do recommend seeing it in theaters if you are willing to go to the theaters. I know what a fun time we're in right now in this world, but it's definitely was meant for the big screen, and I'm kind of glad they waited until then to release it because it's just visually pleasing to see on the big screen. So if you've seen Tenet, let me know in the comment section below. What do you think about the film? Leave a like on the video for more reviews, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace, and may the Tenet be with you. Bye.